Well, hi, everybody. This is Dear Mama Sal, and we are live on a Friday lunchtime, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with our feelings. And my topic for today is going to be, how do you cope with your feelings if you get a threatening letter? And I want to go through all what happens to us when we get something like that, and also how to de escalate it, how to deal with it, and how to just calm yourself down. And hopefully that will help you a great deal. The case study comes from real life. It happened to not only myself, but also to a neighbor of mine this week. And so I've got two different examples of what happened and how it happens and how we react. All right, so hi, Jody. And for those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin, and she has been helping me for the longest time. And it's really great to see her here. And thank you, Jody. I appreciate it. Remember to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The reason I suggest that is because that's where I put updates. If I hear any news about any of the viewers, or if I need to change a broadcast for some reason or something, that I would definitely put it up on Facebook and Twitter, just so that you're aware. So, Dear Mama Sal, quite easy on Facebook and Twitter. All right, and waiver. I just want to make sure you all understand that what I am going to talk about is not as a psychologist, psychiatrist, anything other than a human being with white hair. That means I've lived a long time, and somebody that's been through these things. I always said that if I went onto YouTube, I would like to share with people what I have learned over the years in the hope that they will learn something from it. And today is something that, what one of the things I say to people is, just because I know these things doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to me. It still happens to me. I just learned to cope with it a little bit better. And I wanted to give you some of those tools. I repeat this quote quite often, which is smile, breathe, and go slowly. And I want to tell you, in this situation, the most important thing that you can do is to do whatever you need to do to be able to smile again, to be able to breathe again, and to be able to go slowly. How many of you have noticed when you get a threat, your breathing comes right up, sometimes even into your throat, and you sort of hyperventilate? And so one of the important things is when you're trying to deal with either a real or perceived threat, is to make sure that you get back to breathing as quickly as possible. Thoughts, prayers, and celebrations. Just before we get on to the main topic, I just wanted to let you know, for those of you who are long-time viewers, two things. Today is Louisiana Laurie's birthday, but if you haven't heard, she unfortunately passed last week. So we send her thoughts and prayers up to heaven. I wanted to remind you all that there will be no broadcasts on Friday, the 27th of August. For those of you who know, Dougie and I have birthdays at the end of August, and we always pick one day where we celebrate it. And he chose to pick Friday, next Friday, and I'm not going to say no to that. And he's coming to help me in the afternoon, which is his gift to me. And then he will stay the night so we can, fix the problems of the world. For those of you who are long-time viewers, I heard this week that I heard from Leslie McBride. And if you remember, she was our Scottish viewer who, when we met her, had agoraphobia. That's when you can't go, you're too terrified to go outside. And her agoraphobia had to do with, she had a phobia about getting sick if she went outside, ill. And over, quite honestly, only a few months of being part of Dear Mama Sal, she not only went outside, she then walked to the bottom of her garden. She then walked, she then learned to get in a car, and then she learned how to drive a car. The last I heard of her until this week was that she had, you know, passed her driving license. She's gone to an Adele concert and was in the 12th row back. I mean, imagine that if you're somebody that doesn't like going out. And also had been in the biggest tube, an aeroplane, and gone on vacation. But now what pleased me so much is I found out through an update that I got that she is now working. And how about that? I mean, I must say that if I only had, a couple of things to remember Dear Mama Sal by, it would be definitely her journey and also Jodie's, where I know that we made a definite impact in their lives. So all the best to Leslie in Scotland, and hopefully that we will get to see her again. We're still doing thoughts and prayers for Bernice. I don't have an update for her. So now then. Oh, and thanks, by the way, to Lynn for the thumbnails. Actually, I always like to thank her because she does a lot of the generic thumbnails that I put up, and I appreciate it. So let's get on to this business about receiving a threatening letter in particular. Have any of you ever had one? Maybe it has to do with not paying a bill. Maybe it has to do with a rental agreement. Maybe it has to do with whatever. But the thing is that when you get them, it really sets off a series of dominoes. They go, and I'm pretty certain you all know the feeling, because it's a horrible feeling, and it's like anything where you have a perceived or real threat. It sets up these emotions that are really difficult to handle. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it today. Let me first of all start off by saying that a threat is a statement of an intention to inflict pain, injury, damage, or other hostile action to somebody in retribution for something done or not done. And that's the thing I want you to understand, is that it is in retribution, all right? It means that you're getting this because you have done something wrong. Now, how many of us like to think that we've done something wrong? I personally, I don't go out of my way to do things wrong, but so when I get a letter that tells me that I've done something wrong, how many of you can, let me just get a pen here. I just wanted to say that, first of all, do you agree that when you get something like that, your emotion goes really high? All right, so it shoots up like that. And then what I want to show you through the discussion we're going to have today is how over time and information you can bring this down and then act. All right. And that's what I would recommend. All right. Do not act. All right. Until you've brought the emotion down. It's like anything else. All right. Does that make sense? And by the way, that threat can be real or perceived. Okay. So let us work on that to start with. It is the annual letter writing of the, I'm in a community where we all own our homes, but we sit on rented land. And so every year we get what I call the are you in compliance type letter. And, some people get them and some people don't. And I'll talk about that a bit later. But here's the thing. I got one again. If you remember, I got one last year where I had to, what did I do? I had to remove the shed last year, right? And so this year I got the letter and it told me to take down the cubies I had put up so that I could put the stuff that was in the shed into the cubies. And now they told me that I needed to take it down. You can imagine that that sent my emotion up because when I found out it wasn't up to the park standard, I think it was better than the park standard myself, but never mind. That's what they said. Now you understand, I also, because of that, will have a loss of money, time, effort, all those things. And you might wonder why I'm talking so calmly about it right now. Well, that's what I want to show you. Okay. So the first thing that I want to say is you can all probably imagine that that was not my first reaction to be calm. So if this happened to you, how would you feel? What would your emotions be? Let's get some idea. Would you be angry? Would you be sad? Would you be revengeful? Would you be, wait, what would you be? I don't want to actually put, all right, Jody's saying anger and fear. Yes, fear definitely. Fear of what, Jody? Of what would you fear? And I agree that, wasn't it Dr. Jerry Jampolsky who said that um, love is letting go of fear. There are only two emotions, love and fear. All right, and if you're not in a place of love, you're in a place of fear. And I always remember that because if you can understand that, then you can sort of work with yourself a little bit better. So Jody's saying, fear of what is the end game here? Yes, like what will happen if I don't do it, or how long are they going to keep complaining about things, or all those sort of things. So I want to say that when I got it, I was aware that I received something that negatively was going to impact my life in a negative way. Does that make sense? So that made me angry. I found that the wording was demanding rather to some degree, and that made me a sense of losing my freedom, being controlled. Do any of you relate to that one? I like my freedom. It had some pretty threatening language in it. Words like remove, immediately. And the or else was implied. All right. So anything that includes words, actions, or behaviors that reflect serious intention to instill fear in another person or intent to cause physical or mental harm could lead to psychological or physical harm of another person. Do you understand? People send these letters, and the idea is if I threaten you, it'll, make you jump into action and do what we want. Is that what actually happens? I hope not. What I want you to understand, and what we're going to talk through, is number one, I recommend if you get anything like this, number one, feel the emotion and make sure that you've got that sorted out. And then, and then get input. Talk to people. Next, think, don't panic. All right? And the reason is because we need you to get away from the emotion. So the next step is to think and not panic. Think like a lawyer. How does a lawyer think? A lawyer takes away the emotion and deals with facts. And I will show you what happened to me when I did that. And then Also remember to think like the person who sent the letter, because that's also important, right? And then number 3, know your rights. All right, depending on what it is, know your rights. All right, and then 4th, you choose what to do next and when to do it. Now, consequences, Jody, is what you were talking about, right? Which is, what are the consequences going to be? And, most of these letters are not well written. And when I say that, they don't answer the questions who, what, why, where, when, and how. I've always said to people that I trained in leadership, make sure when you're writing a letter, it answers the question who, what, why, where, when, and how. In other words, who needs to do something? What do they need to do? Why do they need to do it? Where does it need to be done? Is there a how it needs to be done, and by when? All right. Or even if you're just saying, I'd like you to come over to my place next week. Who? You to come over to my who? What? Come over to my place. Who? What? Why? Why? I didn't make a comment as to why. So because I'd like to chat to you about da 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 da. Who? What? Why? Where? To my place. When? Next week. Next week is pretty iffy, isn't it? It's not specific. Um, so I would need to change that. And who, what, why, where, when, and how. Any way you like. you know. And so I've always found that asking those questions helps you write a better letter. So the other thing I wanted to make sure you do is to think like a friend. All right. Because, by the way, this could happen to you or to a friend. And if you think about it, if you think like a friend, you would treat yourself differently. All right. You would definitely look after yourself a lot better. So one of the things that I did was I actually went to go and talk to friends. All right. And I took the letter with me and I said, okay, could you read this, please? Because I wanted to see their reaction. My question of myself was, did I overreact to this in any way? And guess what? No, they reacted exactly the same way as I did. Um, and so then what I did was I started to discuss each paragraph with them. And what happened is while I was discussing it, um, they obviously agreed with me on some things and then added input on others, which meant that I started to get a little time between me and the letter and also some information. And when you start doing that, your blood pressure starts to come down, your anger level will start to come down. But what it also did was it told me that I didn't have answers to certain things. And I'm going to be explaining to you why that is. All right. The thing is, as well, if you've got somebody that you're trying to help, all right, that's received this, make sure you ask them open-ended questions. In other words, get information from them and say, has it always been, let me just give an example. One of my neighbors was told to remove a shed and remove one of her cats. And what I wanted to know from her was how long had the shed been there? Had it not been mentioned previously, in the 8 years she'd lived here? And how did they find out about the cats? You know, I'm pretty certain I know how, but that was another question because I know that she keeps those cats inside, and there is no way anybody would know unless it was somebody who knew and was being spiteful. And once you've talked to them about the emotions, all right, the same as I went to go and talk about my emotions, if you're helping somebody, let them talk out their emotion. All right, that's the anger, the sadness, the it's not fair, blah, 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 all those things that you are going to react with initially. That's emotional stuff. And then once they've passed through that emotional barrier, you can start asking them different things. You can start thinking and talking like a lawyer. So what does a lawyer do? We know that they listen for the facts and they just ignore the emotion because they can't do anything about the emotion. Their job is to deal with the facts. So the funny thing was, when I reread my letter, I realized that a lot of it was what they call boilerplate. I don't know if you know what that term is. In other words, it was a standard letter, and there was, perhaps one paragraph that actually talked about my QBs that had to come down. And then when I looked at it, there was some generic things in there. Generic as in not specific. They said, tidy up my yard. Well, quite honestly, my yard is tidy. So I thought, they didn't say what specifically, so I'm not going to worry about that. What I did was I went and took pictures of every part of my yard. So if this came up again, I can show that on this date, I took these pictures and this is what it looked like. And so unless you're going to tell me specifically what you want me to tidy up. Now, the other thing I noticed was, I think I've spoken about this before, they are meant to advise you in writing if they're going to do an inspection with at least 24 hours notice. And I actually made them aware of that, which they were not happy about. And then, guess what? In the letter it said, by the way, I let them know about that law on the 1st of August. And then in the letter it said we did another inspection on the 11th. So that's twice they inspected without giving me warning. And they put it in writing, not very clever. So you understand I am keeping this paper trail. Because I have to, make a decision. Do I want to take this up or not? So the thing that I asked my other neighbor was, about she's got to remove one of her sheds, and it said immediately, and obviously she was really upset about that, as she'd been living there for 8 years with both sheds. And can you imagine that, hearing that you got to remove a shed immediately? I went through that a year ago, if you remember. Is pretty scary stuff. Pretty scary stuff. And so I said to her, how would you do it if you had to? And so I said to her, and the other thing is, if you're forced to do it, just because they say immediately, I would, get hold of the tenancy board, because that's information that I gave her. I said I would get hold of the BC Tenancy Board and find out what your rights are. All right, that they haven't mentioned it before. But I already had a pretty good idea because I'd phoned them, of course. Sharon, I phoned them. But I didn't want to be telling her, because then I get caught up in the, well, you told me, da 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 da. And I said, no, you need to phone them and see what they tell you. So that's what I did. So what I did before I made the call was I made a list of questions that I wanted to ask them. And I would recommend, if you have a tenancy thing, if you think your landlord is being unfair in any way or whatever, there are two things you really need to know. Number one, you need your tenancy document. In other words, the document you signed to rent, if you are renting a property, or, which is my case, I rent the land on which I stand, or if you rent an apartment or something, you need that document. And if you don't have it, just ask for a copy of it, the signed copy of it. Now, the reason you need the signed copy of it is for a legal reason. If you signed a document 8 years ago, and they have changed the rules in the current document, right, that they're issuing today, You are not bound by these new ones. You are bound by this one. Did you all know that? Even if they've changed, their application or whatever, the one you signed is the one. And I'd like you to double check this, of course, because I'm not a lawyer, but I understand that the one you signed is the one that takes precedence. All right, that's the one that you are bound by. If they've changed 4 rules and posted it and haven't got your signature on it, if you haven't signed to change the rules, then you're not bound by them. Unfortunately, people think that just because they told you that we changed the rules that you have to change. No, you are bound by what you signed. It's a legal contract. Okay. So 2 things I asked my neighbor that had the letter as well. And I said, number 1, did it say anything about the sheds in your initial contract? And like me, it did. But like me, she presumed that it was already on the property, that it was okay for it to be there, even though the contract said you're only allowed 1 shed. Does that make sense? And that's called grandfathered, that it had been there for a long time. In my case, mine had been there for 10 years, hers had been there for 8. And so, interesting stuff. The next thing I asked her was, did she also sign that there was only 1 pet allowed? So can you see that by now we're finding out more information, and even though she was still very fearful, she was beginning to see that the actions were not totally unfair. If the document says only 1 pet and you've got 2, I understand that you want to know who ratted on you, and that makes you angry. But the truth is, if they now know, and they're going to say, we want you to remove 1, how many of you would want to make that choice? You got 2, let's say you got 2 dogs, and suddenly somebody says you've got to get rid of 1. That is emotionally painful. It is, you're bound to react to that. I think it's perfectly natural, but think like a lawyer. Was it in the initial contract? And did I think I would get away with it? Does that make sense? You've got to see the difference in that. Of course, it would be terribly painful. But can you see that when you think like a lawyer, what did the contract say? Did you sign the contract with those stipulations in it? And by the way, that was the reason I took down my shed, even though I still felt that it wasn't correct. That was the reason I did take down my shed and sell it. The matter will still come up. Yes, I agree. Sharon's saying that's like saying pick a child. Sophie's choice. Pick a child. Which one would you like to keep? Yeah, for those of us who are that close to our animals. So, but you understand, if you think like a lawyer, pretty clear. So now we've done with that. By the time I'd done all of that, I reread the letter again. Can you see that what I'm doing is, and I told her to reread the letter again and make sure she understood if there was anything in there that wasn't fair under her contract. Different story this time. Now the issue is, how do I fight it, or how do I get rid of the shed? And I said to her, ignore the word immediately and be aware there are only 4 reasons why they can evict you. And I don't think that would be one of them. Why? It was a pre-existing building on the plot of land in which you sit. But I said, I'm not a lawyer, but that's the sort of thing you want to check with the tenancy people. Can they evict you if you don't take it down? Be a very interesting argument. I decided not to fight that fight at the time, because I had had the fire and I had other matters that were more important to me than a shred. My mental health was one of them. And one of the things that I learned very early on in my life, and some of you will understand this, that there's a lawyer told me this. He said, Sal, don't ever sue somebody or take them to court because you think you're right. He said, I'm going to tell you something as a lawyer that you need to hear, and I need you to remember it for the rest of your life. And I said, which is, he said, there's only one person that's going to, make guaranteed to make money out of a court case, and that's a lawyer. There's no guarantee you will win. Even if you think you're right, there's no guarantee you will win. And what he said to me is, think about the time, energy, effort, money, emotional stress, inconvenience, that goes into doing something like this before you go forward. I have to tell you that in my lifetime, I think that bit of advice was one of the best bits of advice that I've ever received. So before I go screaming in to attack somebody, I don't. I think about it and make sure that I spend time discussing it, hearing other opinions, finding out what the law says, finding out what my contract says, understand, and then decide, do I still want to take action? Because at the end of the day, it is my choice, right? So do you know your rights? And what I did was I made this list of questions to ask the resident BC tenancy people. And, maybe it's your legal aid. I think what we have in Canada may not be the same as what you may have in the States. And therefore, but somewhere you have the ability to phone people and get free advice about tenancy issues. And all I did was I just Googled tenancy question in British Columbia, and it came straight up, and BC Tenancy Board or something, and it said to get information, phone this number. So I did, and I had this list of different questions. And the funny thing was, I went through them, and the person at the other end is not allowed to tell you what to do, but they can give you the facts. So you can ask them, are they allowed to do X, Y, and Z? And they can say, the act says da 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 da. In other words, they will just quote that paragraph. And whether you go to arbitration or not is a decision you make, not they. Does that make sense? So they can give you the facts, and that's what I wanted. So I also wanted to see, have I knowingly broken any condition? All right. And if so, I need to own it. And the other thing was, had the landlord knowingly broken any condition? And the answer was, yeah, twice they came onto the property without advising me. And that was something that I double checked with the tenancy board. And they confirmed it. It needs to be in writing, and it needs to be 24 hours notice. What I did as well, just so that you're aware, is I took a copy of the letter and made a copy of it because I wanted to keep the original intact. And then I went through it. And as I went through it, I literally looked at what did they ask me to do? All right. What were the factual things they asked me to do or told me to do? Ask was in one, and the other was not an ask, it was a do. And, when I actually highlighted it, it was only the issue with the cubes and then tidy up the garden. Well, I know the garden's tidy, and that's subjective, right? If they don't tell me you need to take your watering cans and get them out of sight or something like that, if they just say tidy up your garden, I looked at it and went, okay, it's tidy. Let me take pictures to prove it. If I needed to go to arbitration for this, could I prove it? Yep, I could take the pictures, and I did. Open up a file is a good idea. All right, have a file so you can keep these sort of things and document what you have done. Consider your options. Really important thing. Consider what you can do. Does that make sense? Now, obviously, I could take this to arbitration and go, you know, uh, it's time for. By the way, while all this was going on, at least one person came to me and said, "Would you head up the residence committee for things like this?" And I know you're all probably laughing and going, "Yeah, I probably would do the same thing." So, but you know what I said? No, and I said no because I don't need to be living this drama in my life. I came here to retire. I didn't come here to fight battles. I've done that all my life. I just don't want to do it anymore. And that is my right. However, will I help people along the way with information? You bet. So, what I'd like to recommend is that you give yourself at least a few days to get rid of the emotional reactions, all right, before you act. Does that make sense? And then, because you don't want to panic, you don't want to just have a knee-jerk reaction, but then you get to choose what actions you take. Again, just because I know that they infringed a tenancy law, does that mean I need to go to arbitration? And by the way, they did it twice. I started to think through this. And, I know that I gave her, I printed it out. And on the 1st of August, literally walked up to her and showed her the piece of paper, all right, with the act on it. And then she said, it doesn't apply to us. We're privately owned. I said, all communities like this are privately owned. It does apply. And I made sure I had a witness that saw me discuss it with her. When I'd finished discussing it with her, I went to the witness and I said, this is the piece of paper I've just been talking about. This is the act. This is what it says. And I just want you to know that that's what I was talking about. So I knew I then had a witness to the fact that I had shown it to her. She read it, she argued about it, and then handed it back to me. Okay? But did she know? She can't say she didn't know. She didn't agree with it. But again, I get to choose whether I take it any farther or not. All right. Now then, we've got this far. We've had our feelings. All right. We've taken a moment to think like a lawyer, get rid of the emotion. What are the facts? All right. And then the next thing is, what if we think like a landlord? All right. What if we think like a landlord? And there was part of me when I was going through this process, when I got to that question, because you know me, I like to see both sides of things. I went, why did I get the letter? I got the letter because I was in infringement of something. I had not asked for permission to put those cubies up. Now, I'm a big girl, and I am pretty accountable. And I was of the opinion that if it's on my deck, that is my business, not hers. But when I really got nitty-picky about it, I thought, it is seen from the road, therefore, maybe it is within her domain. Again, a question that I am not 100% sure of, but if ever I needed to go to arbitration on this, I would, obviously get a much better idea about it. But then I thought, is it worth the fight to me? Do I want to be fighting all the time? And the truth is, Sal, if you'd asked for permission, you would have got a no at the get-go. And therefore, you wouldn't be in this position now. But there was that part of me that went, but I've spent the money and now where am I going to put everything? And, one of the things was I now had to tidy up my deck, which was shielded from everybody before, but now I've got to, tidy all that up again. So you can understand that was more emotional stuff. And I'm going, okay, sit down, grab your coffee, sit down, have a look at the deck. The first thing I did was the very next day, I took down the cubies. And I put everything that were in the cubies, I put them into boxes and took them into the house. Now, it's not where I want them. You know that. I do not want my gardening things in my home, but that's where they are until I work out what to do with them. The next thing I did was that I started systematically tidying up the deck again. And I'm now at the midsection. The end section is tidy already, so it's just the middle section now that I need to clean up. And I will do that tomorrow. So when I thought like a landlord, that sort of quietened me down a little bit, if that makes sense. And what I realized was now I get to choose, do I want to take this to arbitration or not? That is my choice. I'm pretty sure that a couple of things are within my control, but really, do I want to go fighting this at this time? And I couldn't help but think, well, Sal, if you'd done what the bylaws said, you wouldn't be in this situation. How many of you can see that I needed to grow up, put my adult pants on and think like an adult, not like a kid? Can any of you see that? And, whilst the tidy up the yard was subjective, the other thing, I could see both sides of it. And therefore I went, something? I have decided that I'm just going to take it down. And how I'm going to fix that problem is I've got the rest of my life to work on. What I did is I took it out of sight and took it all inside. So, I was lucky that I didn't have the over-emotional triggers that my neighbor did, with animals. But can you see that if you think like a landlord and the landlord's contract clearly states one animal, one pet that must be agreed to by the manager, that really she doesn't have a leg to stand on. So, and I think she understood that. And it's not fun. And I almost said, maybe you want to give me one of the cats. And I shut my mouth, But, there has to be an easier way. Rather than get rid of a cat, maybe one of, somebody else on this section will adopt the cat for her so it can still visit or something. Or ask for permission to adopt it and let it continue to live there because that's where it lives. Now, when you're helping a friend, I wanted to let you just think about this a little bit. You notice that when I was helping the friend, I actually heard all her emotion first, and then I started to think like a lawyer questions. And then the warning I have for you is don't be an enabler. Now, if you don't know what that means don't offer to make the telephone calls for her. You can give her the number. You can tell her this is what you might want to do, give her options, but don't do it for her. All right? Because you'll end up being the bad person in the end if you do, if you misunderstand something. Let her get her own information. And she said to me, but you've already done that. And I said, no, I got my information and my understanding. You need to be an adult, make your call, discuss it with them, with your issues and your understanding. But how many of us, desperately want to help everybody, and we start doing stuff that, for them when we need to be doing stuff for ourselves? And, that's not being a bad friend. In other words, I said to her, I can get you that information. By the way, I can print out the act if that's what you would like. But I can get you where you can talk to people. But you need to do that, because if you're thinking of going to arbitration, you need to be clear that you heard it from them, not from me. Does that make sense? And again, remind them, all right? Remind your friend that taking legal action may sound right, but it will cost them time, money, and maybe even bring them more trouble in the long run. How many of you can see that? All right? Pick your battles. Do you really want to make a mountain out of a molehill? However, if they can confirm that they're right and they have the right to do so, they have the right to take it to arbitration. That's what these boards are for, so that people can check what the legal side of it is and, get advice on it. As I said, I know that they contravened the Notice Act twice. So, and it's in the file. I'm documenting time, date, everything, so that if ever I do need to go, I've got history of this, this situation. I do recommend keeping good notes, all right? Because it's difficult to remember what you actually said and did. The other thing I would really like to recommend is the moment we get something threatening like that, we are inclined to get pretty angry. And some of us, when we get pretty angry, start to use foul language. I personally do everything in my power not to do that, even though I would love to tell them what I really think. What I work really hard at is keeping control and making sure that I do not do that, because that is threatening as well. So if they're threatening you and you are verbally abusing them, do you understand? So what I do is I do everything within my power not to use anything other than fairly, I say fairly decent language. My body language sort of gives me away, as you know. It's like, but I am aware of that. So, but they cannot call me on the fact that I called them bad names, because I refuse to do that. I know that that can be an issue. And the other thing is, you'll find that the language turns down. If you behave yourself, then the other person will hopefully start toning down a bit as well. And by the way, if they start labeling you or calling you or using foul language, right, just tell them to stop. I hear you labeling me with the word so and so, and I need you to stop doing it. Or stop. I hear you making judgments about me, and I don't appreciate that. That you can do that. Or if it's verbal and they start using, foul language, you go, stop. There's no need for us to abuse one another. You will notice I'm not doing that to you, and I'd appreciate it if you would stop doing it to me. The next thing I would recommend is, wherever possible, go for a win-win. All right? In other words, can you bend enough that you can see a benefit to what they're asking? And I call that the win-win. When I really sat down with the coffee and I looked at it all and I went, okay, well, if I did take the cubies down, what would I do with it? No, don't worry about that. If you took it down and got rid of what's in there, just put it in the house, would that settle that issue? Yes. Would that calm everything down? Yes. Would you have done it immediately? Yes. Would she have a leg to stand on? No. I like that. Got the boxes out, my packing boxes came out again. I started to put the tape back in them and hucked things in there and took them in the house. All right. And then I went, okay, fine. If I really get my head turned around a bit, can I see that getting this annual letter might actually help me. And probably you're all rolling your eyes at me, but there was that part of me that went, it's my little wake-up call that it's not quite as tidy as I think it is. Can you see that? Now, I know it's somebody else's judgment, but, it was just like, and by the way, when you finish tidying up the deck again, will you be happy? And I'm going, not really, because I really did like it enclosed. And I'm going, well, you know how to do it now. You need to go and get permission to do the right things. And once you've got permission, you can go ahead and do it for next year. Because, we're about to hit winter. So, okay. And, the last thing I thought about was this. That if I had done everything by the book, I would never have got the letter. Does that make sense to you? Now, what made me angry, and I'm still dealing with this, is that people whose yards are way more, and mine's pretty tidy, way more untidy than mine, way more messy than mine. I know at least one that did not get a letter. Now, that makes me angry, but will getting angry fix the problem? Because, life isn't fair. I know that. And I don't need to get that person into trouble. How many of you would go, well, it's not fair because, so-and-so's yard is way worse than mine? No, I don't need to get somebody else into trouble in order to make a point. My responsibility is to deal with my stuff, not cause trouble for my neighbors. Does that make any sense to you? And life is not fair. We know that. So I learned something that I didn't know. That in a situation like this, whether you're in a rented apartment or in my case, I'm on rented land, if you have an issue with your neighbor, do not go to your neighbor. I found out when I made the call, it was the one thing I was wrong on, apparently. That if you have that situation, in real life, I would say, be an adult, go take it up with the neighbor and, deal with it like adults. Apparently not under tenancy. What you should do is make the complaint to the manager or the holding company or whatever, and they will deal with it. So that was interesting. Any questions on this? All right. So to me, it's like we all, could get a letter, or our friends could get a letter. Do you feel that at some level you are better able to cope with either helping yourself or helping them? All right. Remember, start off by hearing all the emotion. Get it out. If it's your emotion, go talk to a friend and use all the language you want to use and go, it's not fair, or and I hate it when this, and get all the emotion out, and then go, okay, fine, now let me start thinking like a human being now. Let me start thinking like a lawyer. What's in the contract? Okay, fine, grow up. A contract's a contract. And then, think like the person that's writing the letter. Yeah. Sharon, I want to tell you, Sharon's saying, I'm so thankful I don't have a homeowners association or such. I have to tell you that one of the things that I went through my mind was I never had this problem when I owned my own house and the land. But that's useless, isn't it? Why? Because I don't anymore. So, move on. Things have changed. And you know what else I kept thinking about? And I've got to be quite honest about that. I'm thinking I'm not stuck in Afghanistan wondering whether I can make it to the airport through all those Taliban checkpoints. without getting shot in the head. I'm not one of those people. I am not one of those women who have started schools and things for women during the last couple of decades in Afghanistan and who are likely to get shot very soon. I am not the first female mayor of a town in Afghanistan who is waiting to get shot. So really, when you think about it, that it's small potatoes compared to all of that. Yeah, and Jodi's saying the QB's coming down is not sitting well with me. Not that it matters. Your deck is your deck, and it looked beautiful. They made you take down the shed, so that was a reasonable option. I thought so too, but apparently not. But you know something, Jodi? When I really think about it, I've got a huge shed at the back of my property, all right, the width of my house, and it's full of stuff I have not sorted. If I could, during the winter, get rid of some of those boxes, it ended up with about 5 boxes of stuff. I've just got to make room for 5 boxes in my shed. Does that make sense to you? That's how I calmed down. I went, you need to take out some boxes during the winter, get them sorted, get them, you're good at doing that now, get them sorted, and then you will have room in the shed for these things. Yes, Jodi's saying, I guess I'm still in a snit. Jodi, I totally get that. All right. And you are also a mother hen. All right. And you don't like it that people picked on me. I know that. Any more than I liked it that they picked on my neighbor who happened to have lost her job this month. It's like, it's not fair, but life isn't fair. Life is life. And so you look at it, can you see how I was able to start emotionally right up here, and then over time and seeing all the different sides, I am now down here. Can you see that? Yes, Sharon, I totally understand that. Sharon's going, I'd probably be thinking revenge. Totally, I went through it. Don't mind telling you. My mind flashed there for a second, and then I laughed and went, that's not very adult. But I could, quite honestly, I know that I could go to arbitration and have a big issue about the fact she doesn't do these written things. I may still do that. I may still put in a complaint. But what I may do is to get a number of people on board on that one. Right? I'd rather educate everybody and let them know so that she's not just hearing it from me, she's hearing it from everybody. And by the way, this manager also threatens people with eviction. I really, if you happen to be in a rented situation of anything, I really want you to read the conditions under which you can get evicted, because it is not for not paying your rent occasionally. It is for consistently not paying your rent. So if you happen to not be, you obviously need to pay it, but if you pay it late, consistently, they can evict you. But if you occasionally pay late, they can't evict you. I think that's an important thing to know. Or here in British Columbia, in Canada. So find out what your local laws are, or find out with your friend, if the friend's got the problem, what the local laws are, because I found that as soon as I had more facts, I just calmed down quite a bit. In other words, now it's my choice. Do I want to take this further or not? Or do I just want to, do what needs to be done, find a new solution? Maybe I would love to completely enclose my deck. Why? This is called It's Now in My House. and you can't get in to see it or complain about it. And what I do in it, and I would like to enclose it with one-way glass. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah. you, there's another part that I thought, what if I put curtains up there? Those black fly screens. I want to know whether that's acceptable, because that would also work fairly well. But it would darken it. I must admit, the white blinds that I had kept the light coming in. All right, so Kimmy's saying, my neighbor did his roof. The workers threw shingles and nails all over our driveway. I just went out, swept it onto their side, and then he cut a tree down and put all of it on our side. It took them all summer to get it done. Yeah. You obviously had the right to ask them to take it off your property. The fact that you fought the right, to my mind, the fact that you just tidied up the shingles, is and the nails, right? I think that was a good move. I must admit, if they took down a tree and put it all over my property, I would probably be talking to somebody about it. And that's one of those things where, find a friend who's studying law and get them to write a letter for you. I'm a great believer in that. Somebody who's just qualified as a lawyer. One of the things that's interesting in lawyers is that what really costs the time, costs the money, is the time. And so, I found out, don't go in for an appointment. Just write them an email and say, this is what I'd like fixed. How much would you charge me to write this letter? Yeah, Kimmy's saying, nothing got done. I didn't want flat tires. You see, you thought about what could the repercussions be, but that's coming from a place of fear. And so there's that part of you. A lot of you will say, don't be afraid, do what's right. But I, quite honestly, if I lived in the States, where there was a possibility that my neighbor could pull out a gun to sort this one out, yeah, I don't think I would be too keen. Just my thing. So I'm hoping that this has helped you a little bit. See that just deal with your side of it, but see everybody else's side. And when you've calmed down, that's when you decide what you want to do. Everybody was pushing for me to take this here and do this and do this and do this. And I went, yeah, I know I could. But whether I want to is up to me, right? Even if they call me names and saying, whatever, I don't mind. This is my life. I get to do what I want to do, not what you want me to do. Makes sense? The other thing I really must make sure that you understand, do not talk about these things. Put it in writing. Even if it's the guy with the tree stuff, put it in writing that you would ask them to please remove the tree bits from your property, but and give them a deadline. Yeah, and Kim is saying they did it so badly they could even be their shingles still up on her roof. All right, yeah. But can you get up there and find them? And if you'd found them, what would you do with them? Leave them there, or would you just take them down? Or will you wait until the winter winds come and they will take them off for you? There's another way of looking at it always, Kim. Now, I got it. Moving on now to Did You Know? I found a really neat trick. I think you all know I've got this beautiful new wall-to-wall shower, but one of the things that they put in was a drain, and the holes in the drain, The holes must be as big as that. All right. Which means if one of my earrings came off in the shower, well, yeah, I do get into the shower occasionally with my earrings on. Do any of you relate to that? So if one of my earrings came off and went, it would go down the shower. And I'm going, that's insane. Must have been a man that designed that. And so then I thought, but you're smart. So what I found out was, if you, there's a reason why I recommend this. I've got this rubberized matting that goes into drawers and things. And what I did was I cut a circle around a mason jar lid, a wide one like that, and put it onto the shower holes. Now, and by the way, it's got one side is bubbles up and this side is flat. So I put it with the bubbles down, all right? And what I didn't realize, not only does it stop my earrings dropping down there, but it also stops all the hair. It's amazing. You know, just every couple of days I pick it up and I go, yuck. And I take the hair, wash it off, and then put it back down again. But it's amazing how much hair it collects. So I thought I'd share that with you in case you've got a shower and would like to stop the hair going down the drain. Very simple hack. Now, you know that of late I have been saying to you, where possible, buy the bigger amount of things. All right. If you need, I needed Tylenol, extra Tylenol this week. And, you know, as usual, I went and had a look at, okay, fine. There was the small size and then there was the big size. Here's what I found out. It's really good idea to read the fine print. I don't know whether, you know, your store does this, but my store actually tells you how much you end up paying per item. So, for example, if it's Tylenol, in the fine print, it tells you you're paying, let me see what it was. Hang on. Oh, yeah. For the Tylenol, for the small pack, I was paying 18 cents per pill. Okay. And then they had the same pills, but they had the large one. All right. And the large one had twice as many pills in it. And when I looked at the price, the large one was 23 cents a pill. So obviously I bought two of the smaller one. So watch out. And I just wanted to show you what that looks like. Oh, that wasn't a good idea, so hang on. Not a good idea to do what I just did. Can I turn this? Okay. So if you can see it, I've just highlighted there. Here's the price, and here is the individual count. All right. So remember to check that because I saved 5 cents per pill doing that. And you know, and I'm going, why would it be? Never mind, it is today. Maybe they had a special on the small pack. I don't know, but it's just like, that saved me some money. And I like that. I don't know about you. I thought I would let you know that the temperature in British Columbia has now dropped down. We are now into a very balmy 73 Fahrenheit, which for those of you who speak Canadian, 23 Celsius. It's just like, thank you. It's a cool, rainy day today. I'm going, yay. Oh, I thought I'd show you. This is my spinach that I've been growing all summer, and the reason I'm showing you is because I didn't realize it until I started doing this growing my own stuff, that when I'm doing a stir fry or something, I don't want a lot, right? I just need a couple of leaves to go in the stir fry. And yeah, when I want some cabbage into a stir fry, I don't need a lot. I just need a couple of leaves. And how many of you can see that just growing one like this, uh, it probably will last me, I don't know, quite a while. I've been plucking on this one for quite a while. So, and the other thing is, just so you know, hang on, where are they? Yeah, all these peppers that are growing are all from seeds that came off a pepper that came into the house, and I just put it in the windowsill there to dry. And once it was all dry, I just used the seeds. And the same with grape tomatoes. Hang on. I buy my grape tomatoes on the vine like this because they're so tasty. And, all I do is when they're getting a bit old, there's one I picked up was getting a bit old, I'm going to cut that in half, dry it, and I'll use those seeds for my next crop of tomatoes. So that's good. Here's something else I wanted to share with you. Something happened to me recently where Amazon sent me a parcel and they said it was delivered, and I went, no, it isn't. And then when 3 days, oh, by the way, I phoned them up and I said, I know it says it was delivered, but actually it wasn't. And they said, not a problem. They would credit me. I said, thank you very much. Couple of days later, I went to the mailbox, and guess what? I found the parcel in the mailbox. It was a small parcel. And then, of course, being who I am, I phoned them up and I said, please reverse the credit. I now have the parcel. Now, I know a lot of people would have just, rolled their eyes and go, I got it for free, but I'm not that person. But what I found interesting was one of my neighbors came to me last night and on my door, and I said, hi, what can I do? Did you by any chance take a delivery for me? And I said, no. Was it from Amazon? Yes. I said, was it a small thing or a big thing that you're waiting for? And they said, a small one. Why? And I said, you may want to check your mailbox, because my experience is that I had exactly that happen to me about a month ago, and I found it in my mailbox. Why in the mailbox? And I said, because a third party person is mailing it rather than Amazon sending it by their parcel system. So I thought I'd share that with you in case any of you want to think about that or have that problem, or a friend of yours does. Now, in the news section, I shook my head this week at the courage of some people. I actually have tears in my eyes as I tell this story, but I don't know if you heard about it. There was an Afghan translator, a guy, who got out. And he got out of the country. He didn't just get to the airport, he got out completely. And he's on his way back. He's on his way back to help other people get out. Now, I don't know about you, but his chances of being alive are probably slim to none. But what an incredibly courageous man that he would risk his life to help others. And not that he was trapped there. He was already free and clear. And by the way, do you know where they're taking everybody? I was a bit confused as to why the evacuations had slowed down and stopped. The reason is they're taking everybody to Qatar. and Qatar is now full. So they're busy trying to organize where their next place is, where they're going to send refugees. I believe it might be Germany who will take some, because that's the next thing. You can't just put them on a plane and go, okay, where am I going to put them? Uh, and I know this all unfolded far more quickly than they thought. I am pretty certain, I wasn't there, but I'm pretty certain that when they had these discussions and all the military people got together and decided how to do this, they said, well, it'll probably take a month or so for the Taliban to, take over. And so but it didn't, did it? It took 10 days. And that's why everybody's in the state that they're in, because nobody foresaw that they would do this so quickly. Again, reminding you that in 4 days, the Paralympics will start. And I really do recommend that you watch them, because it helps us get a real reality on what's going on. I think between Afghanistan and the Paralympics, it's just like, really, how bad are our problems? All right. And to me, it is all about, can you cope with all that is coming at you and still stay sane? And the answer is, if you have emotional intelligence, yes. And if you want to get overwhelmed by it all, no. And you're saying, I don't choose to get overwhelmed, it's just too much. And I go, yeah, but that's why we need to process. And some of you have learned how to process. In other words, when you get something that upsets you, you know you're going to get upset. That's normal. It's like, hello, of course I got upset. That's quite normal. I'm a human being. They're about to take away something I treasure, or they want me to take down something I spent a long time building. Yes, of course I'm going to get emotional about it. And then to be able to process it through until you go, okay, fine. What's plan B? Because they actually do have a leg to stand on that one. It's just like, get a sense of humor. So I'm hoping that this made some sense to you. I'm hoping that you can see that you start with very high emotion, and that is normal, and it is your job to defuse yourself. And by the way, if everybody wants to fight people and, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to, don't go there. Your job is to defuse, not to act. Remember, think it all through before you act. Really important. Even if it uses words like immediately and you must and you have to and da 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 da. Quite honestly, do it slowly and do it right. For those of you under the section of new habits, I am pleased to say that my step count is up this week. Not a huge amount, but it is up. I'm now averaging back up to about 6,000 steps a day. And as you know, I was averaging over 8 to somewhere between 8 and 10. But what I have done is not necessarily been exercising. I just have been more active within my house. And again, think about that. All right. I have now a time. I put the timer on my watch for 30 minutes. So even if I'm binge watching something at night, I can binge watch, half an hour, and then I put it on pause, and then I do the circuit in my house. Hi, Jeannie. How's stuff going in your house, honey? For those of you who don't know, Jeannie's house caught fire just over a year ago, and she just moved back into her new house. What is it? Was it your washing machine that wasn't working properly before? Did that get fixed? I hope. And by the way, Jeannie, just so you know, the insurance people wanted me to sign off, on my stuff. And I said, yeah, and not yet. I'll sign off as soon as everything's done. And just left it at that. And I know it's two different people. The restoration people are over here, and the insurance guy that's trying to get me to sign off is over here. But this is called, I'm not signing this document until everything here is done. And they can, wait. Why? Because I want him to nag this guy for me. If that makes sense. It's like that. All right, so Jeannie's saying, finally, our sleep number bed is okay. Our washer dryer is not perfect, but working. Okay, so your bed is only okay. I would have thought for that investment, it would be wonderful. I'm still very happy with mine, by the way. And Misty is much improved. Misty being Jeannie's Wheaton Terrier. That's awesome. I'm glad that she's much improved. All right, so what's wrong with the bed and what's not perfect about your washer dryer? That's a good idea. Kimmy's saying, and Kimmy lives in Wyoming, I believe. Kimmy's saying that her dryer just bit the dust and she's trying to find a used one. I want to tell you, Kimmy, I used to do that for the longest time. All right. I would go to somebody who repaired washing machines and pick up a secondhand one. And I want to tell you, 9 times out of 10, they were as good as a new one. So well done. And certainly, a lot cheaper price. And Jeannie's saying that the bed that she ordered a dual control bed, but we didn't get it. What did you get? Just a single control? I'm sure you're having them change that for you. Jeannie's saying, sleep number came twice to fix things, bought us the correct bed, and then it wasn't working until York spoke on the phone to someone. Okay, good. You see, it's just patience, right? It's like everything else. It starts off being high emotion, and then you just need to do the right things to get the emotion down and get the right things done. Well done, Jeannie. It's going to be a long process, believe me. I've been back April, May, June, July, August. I've been back 5 months, and I still am not clear. So, allow yourself, this is going to take some time. All right, so Kimmy's saying there is a new one on sale, but that means I'd have to make payments again. Yeah, that's your choice. I sometimes think a reconditioned one, mine used to last just about as long as a new one, quite honestly. So, Kimmy, your choice, all right, which way you want to go. And there's nothing wrong with getting a secondhand one. I would definitely go for a reconditioned one, one that's been rebuilt, better than buying somebody else's trouble, But again, if somebody's got a secondhand one that's only a year or two old, it might be worth doing that. Have a look on Facebook Marketplace. Good stuff. And that's what I love about doing this. It's just like we're all becoming experts at how to get things done in a cheap and friendly way. All right, everybody. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. And if any of you've got any things that you'd like to talk about, I'll happily stay and talk about them. All right. So Kimmy's saying about her needs. Every time I need one, nobody has one. Yep. Sometimes that happens. Yeah. Jody's saying that they got theirs secondhand, Kimmy, and it was 8 months old. They were moving. And how much did you pay for it, Jody? 8 months old. I mean, that's a good thing if you got somebody moving. I keep going. Phew. My washer dryer bit, that I had in the house were awesome, and they'd been in the house for close on 20 years, and they worked like a charm. And then A year after I left, they stopped working. It was just like, phew. They worked beautifully. Okay, so Jodie's saying that she paid about $450 for an 8 months. Oh, that's a good price, right? So this is the whole thing, and quite honestly, the difficulty is how are you going to get it to where you live. So if that isn't a problem for you, then I would definitely get either a second-hand one or a fairly new second-hand one. Oh, so Kim is saying that's what a new one costs on sale. There you go. There's your choice. And yes, you would have to make payments because you haven't got an emergency fund, I presume. And you've done it before, and I'm sure they'd be happy to do that for you. How many of you have an emergency fund? And I know you're saying, it's having difficulty living month to month, never mind have an emergency fund. But it's a really good idea to have an emergency fund, even if you just put $10 a month into it. Because when you do have an emergency, at least you got some money to start with. In other words, when you need a new washer dryer, maybe you got 200 of the 450 that you need, and you'll be very grateful. Of course, then you've got to start topping it up again. But it's a really good idea. By the way, I accidentally overpaid my gas bill in my house, and I'm going, okay, I guess I won't be paying for my guests for a year. And it was just like, that's what works. Yeah. Kim is saying, I just did it with the refrigerator. Things get old and stop working. Yeah, just like us, right? All right. And Jeannie is saying, today we bought a wooden clothing rack on Marketplace. Yes. And it's like the new flea market, isn't it? Marketplace. And some things are really good. The only thing I would say, if you're buying stuff on Marketplace, please don't go alone with cash. I've heard some horror stories and some things. So be careful is all that I would say. And preferably take somebody with you if you're going to go somewhere and pay cash. All right. Anybody got anything else that they want to discuss? If not, I will love you and leave you for today and come back this evening. Well, not for today, for this broadcast. I hope this helped. Can I let you know, or can you let me know, what was it you didn't know about how to cope with a threatening letter? What was it that you learned today that will be helpful to you? Just so that we are aware. And is there a subject that you would particularly like me to put onto the list? Remembering that next Friday, there will be no broadcasts. All right. That's the weekend. It's the day that Dougie and I are celebrating our birthdays. So just so that you remember that. Interesting, Kimmy. Good thing to share with people. If you are diabetic, there might be a shortage of test strips. All right, so I would definitely recommend stocking up on those. I just, funny enough, ordered my next lot. And also what I have here somewhere. No, not this one. Or this one, maybe. I also have, a backup tester with strips. That I got through Wish. So it's not as accurate, but something, it helps. Yeah, Judy's saying that they have 2 checking accounts and 1 saving fund, 1 for saving fund. That's the main thing, is to have a place where you put a little bit of money every month for this sort of thing. And again, I would recommend now, because we're the middle of the year, to round up your bills. If you get a bill for your hydro and electricity or something for $86, pay 90. All right, just pay a little bit extra and do it for the next few months. So by the time it gets to Christmas time, where you need your money for other things, you won't have as much to pay on those utility bills. Your cable, your electricity, your gas. I got my gas covered. All those sort of things, all right, that you pay every month. Just top them up a bit, or put on an extra $10 if you can afford it, and you'll be thankful for it come Christmas. I found that when I do that, I end up with very little debt come January, because I was able to cover the cost. Hi, Erit. Shalom to you as well. Good to see you. Oh, interesting. Jeannie's saying we've had very good luck on Marketplace. Thanks for the broadcast. Well, I'm delighted to hear that. I have neighbors that have had a lot of luck in it as well. I'm trying to get rid of stuff, not get more stuff. And part of what I'm going to do, and it breaks my heart to do it, but part of what I'm going to do is, while Dougie is with me on Friday, is I'm going to take everything out of my studio, so that I've got a clear room in there, and then I will build the cubies again that were on the deck and put them in my studio. And I won't necessarily put the gardening stuff in there, but I will, build that whole second unit, because it's a big one. It's a 5x5 unit, 25 cubes, and that's going to go in there. And then you know how much I hate having the boxes in my bedroom. So that's where I'm going to put them, because if they're in my bedroom, I will unpack them. Does that make sense? And it's actually interesting. I find now that I am beginning every day to tidy up a little bit more in the craft room. I'm literally going, before I get on with my day, what can I put in a cubie and put away? I don't have to get it perfect, because when I get, as I said, when I get everything away, then I will start going through the cubies and sorting them out. Judy's saying a big problem with the contractor. He turned out not to follow through with electrical. All right. So that is, in what way, Jeannie? What has he not done? By the way, I'm still waiting for the lights in my bathrooms. But I'm delighted to tell you my dishwasher no longer attacks me. It's, I keep waiting for it to drop out, and it doesn't anymore. And I keep going, oh, it's fixed. It's such fun. Interesting. Irit's saying, and she's in Israel, right? She's saying that the electricity in the summer is higher than in winter because the air conditioner, but we're prepared for it. Yes, I actually, we have the reverse here. The electricity costs are higher in the winter because we need heat, and lots of it, I found. But what I've also found is, I don't know about the rest of you, but I pay so much a month throughout the year. I don't want, I'd rather pay this amount all year and then even end up with a credit at the end of it, than to suddenly have high bills come. And I don't want high bills close to Christmas, obviously, right? All right, so Jeannie's saying he wanted us to contract electrician, but we paid contractor, not electrician. And he refuses to help you. So you paid the contractor, who was acting like a project manager. So then the contractor needs to get you a new electrician that he needs to pay for, because the work is not finished. My argument will be with the contractor. I wouldn't, I agree with the electrician. Maybe he wasn't properly paid by the contractor. But you said good things about the contractor, so there's a story there. I wouldn't get involved with it, Jeannie. I just say to the contractor, "Hey, we paid you for the electrical to get finished. Please, could you finish it?" The electrician, that is, you understand. That would be my recommendation. And again, be a squeaky wheel. I can, I'm sitting here and there's still things that are not finished, but I'm getting closer. I'm actually, everything that still needed attention, I had Post-it notes stuck on my walls and on my appliances and all sorts of things. What I'm noticing is there are very few left now. Very few. And it's beginning to get quite exciting. I love my barn doors are back up and work beautifully. Very happy with that. I know I've got bathroom paint in my bathrooms now. It's just like, okay, things are beginning to feel a lot better. They still have to come back and turn my half drawers in my vanity into full-size drawers. I don't know when that's happening, but that was meant to be part of the deal, so we will see. It definitely teaches you a lot of patience, doesn't it, Jeannie? And the other thing is, I actually ordered. I have got Doug coming to stay the night, and I realized I don't know where my towels are. I haven't seen them, and so I ordered new towels. And I thought, I deserve new towels anyway. And then I also thought, well, what else do I need? And I thought, I think I'm going to get a robe. I've got a winter robe, but I want one for summer, that is lighter. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I thought, and if I have a guest, it'd be useful. I got it in a color that if I had a guest, it would be sort of unisex thing. Wow, Jeannie's saying what the electrician did was illegal. Yeah, well, if the contractor was in charge of the electrician, or if he had the money to pay for the electrician, then that's his problem, not yours, I would say. No, Kimmy, I won't get one of Judy's robes. That's not the sort of robe I want. I want one that a guy could wear if he came to visit, like Dougie. So I want I don't want a sexy robe. I'm not. I think I'm a bit old for that, honey. I appreciate the thought that you thought I'd look good in one. I probably would. And I'm pretty certain if I'd been down to visit, I'd probably have one anyway. But good thinking. I saw that they messed with the travel into Canada. No, they're still not allowing Canadians to go down into the States, I think, until September now. So again, like any of the problems that we have, all right, get emotional, but then think it through, process it out, and go, okay, forget the emotion. What are the facts? What needs to be done? What step am I going to take? When you can get that emotional intelligence and understand it's okay to start with high emotion. In fact, how can you not? And you can, I have friends that I can vent to. We're using all the language I want to use. And they know all I'm doing is getting rid of my frustration. And then I go, okay, fine. Now then, what's the next step? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? And when do I need to do it, right? Wow. And so whatever's happening with it, what is happening? Are your breakers tripping or whatever? That sounds dangerous. If you have your fridge going off and your lights going off, that sounds like it's dangerous. That could cause another fire. Did you pick him or did your contractor? Oh, that must be so frustrating. Yeah. Well, I must admit that, Jeannie, when I saw the total price of what it cost to put my house back together again, it horrified me. It was over 200,000, but they did use top quality contractors on everything, which is why it's so high. Yeah, Kimmy's saying sometimes I freak out when things don't go right, so I have to think. You and everybody else, Kimmy. What? Let me just make sure you understand this, Kimmy. That it is perfectly normal to freak out, right? Emotional intelligence is when you don't do it for very long, where you go, okay, I need to freak out because I'm angry, scared, da 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 da. Now then, emotion aside, let me think like a lawyer. What are the facts? The facts are so few normally. And then what do I want to do about them? And also, one of the things that I would say is try not to think everything has to be done immediately. In other words, um, I would consider my electricity shorting out to be an emergency, no doubt about it. And I would probably say I'd like this fixed in a hurry because this could be put my house at risk again, or I will need to report you, right, to the Better Business Bureau or blah 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 or whatever. This is like, get this fixed. Get this fixed. That to me is an I need to deal with it now. I don't need to talk about it. I need to deal with it, even if, quite honestly, even yes, part of me that goes just. "Hmm, I'm trying to think what leverage you would have. The contractor took out an important breaker. Nice. I would, what I would do is I would get an inspector in. That's the thing. If you can get your municipality, whatever you call it, your town, whatever, to send an inspector in and say this was done, but you'd like to know if it's been done properly because you're having these issues, and then the municipality will go after him. All right, the contractor chose the electrician. Yeah, so I would say to him, hey, this is now an emergency. Our house could be at risk. When it's shorting out like this, who knows? It could be another fire. And so you need to consider this as urgent, not just you'll get around to it. Have you finished paying the contractor? And the other thing is say to them, if they don't treat it as urgent, you will be contacting the municipality and let them know. Because they can then, if they know that they are doing shoddy work, then, they'll make sure that, they don't want your local um, town there in Maine to know that because they can stop them having business. If you've got a Better Business Bureau, the chances are they're not part of the Better Business Bureau anyway, if they do that sort of work. I will say that overall, I was very happy with the quality of work. Only the electrician is supposed to touch a certain breaker. Yes, I want to tell you, my contractor wouldn't touch um, certain things because it's only uh, you know, for something to do. The guy that it's like you're meant to have a dishwasher guy install the dishwasher back. Kimmy, I've got a feeling that if the guy is that bad, he probably isn't part of the Better Business Bureau, um, and never will be. Yes, and that's a good idea to let them know. But I think they only. All right. So who told you that it was a felony for a contractor to remove it? I would be having that conversation with the contractor and saying, you do realize if there is a fire, you are liable because you illegally took out a why on earth did he take out a breaker? They go after bad companies. Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you, Kimmy. Thanks for the information. So yes, maybe phone the Better Business Bureau and ask them the correct thing to do. Explain to them you had the contractor, and the contractor, um, you know, ordered up the electrician, and now you've got this situation, and you think it could be dangerous for your house because he removed a breaker. The contractor removed a breaker, not the electrician. Scary stuff. Good for you, Jeannie. You're probably wondering when will this all end, right? You've been through a year of it, Jeannie. And you know, I have to tell you that is not an easy year, and I have my side of it, and I know. Jeannie's saying that the contractor got angry at us. I'm certain he did. Yeah, and I would say let the Better Business Bureau deal with it, right? Because they will not only put the fear of God into him, but also they will probably fine him. And advertise the fact that he is doing illegal work. Yeah, so Jeannie, my heart breaks for you, really. Again, my problems are quite small by comparison to yours. What is going right in the house? Let me ask you that one. And Jody, we forgot to celebrate. Jody is back onto some decent food. Jody, you are now allowed salads, and you are allowed what else? Give us an update, Jody, because I know people will want to know. For those of you who don't know, Jody had a gastric bypass surgery, and she started off only being able to have liquids, and then she got really excited when she could have, like soft pudding and applesauce and stuff like that. And now she's actually into eating, chewing real food. Very exciting. Well, it's amazing. And how much weight have you lost? I wonder if Jodie's still with us here. I just wonder how much weight she's lost as well. The last we heard was quite a bit. So, if Jodie, yeah, she's definitely not answering, which means she probably, there she is. Jody says, with all this going on, my salads are not important. Well, they are to me, honey. So you've lost 32 pounds already. I wish I could say the same. Um, but I feel like my weight is distributing differently. I'm beginning to see a little bit of shape back here. So something's happening. And I think I've lost some weight in my legs. That's what I feel, my legs. But I still feel pregnant. But I'm working on that. Um, and then the good news now, I must admit one thing I didn't discuss. One thing I didn't discuss, and it's important, is when you get a shock, like a threatening letter, expect your blood pressure to go up. If you look after your blood pressure on a daily basis. And I found that my blood glucose went up as well. Why? Because obviously the stress, you start eating badly. Um, and so the interesting thing for me is that I think I'm back under control. My blood pressure went up a little bit again this morning. I'm not quite sure why. But I don't understand why my blood pressure is higher in the morning than it is in the evening. Anybody know the answer to that one? All right, so Jody's saying, I hit the dead stall that most patients get shortly after surgery. Okay, so 32 pounds is not a stall. You've been doing really well. Jeannie has lost 6 pounds. Well done. And the good news is her dishwasher works well. Yep. So look for the good every day, right? But I want to tell you something. If I had the electrical problems that you had, I'd be scared. And your bed is now comfy. There you go. I was seriously considered getting a sleep number bed. So that is good to hear. Does yours have massage? Well, I'm trying to think the things I really like about mine. It's the small things like the USB ports on the side. I don't know why that's so exciting for me, but I'm just going, who would have believed I got a bed with a mattress for $1,000 and it's got USB ports and a light underneath it and all sorts of fun things. And the same way is I'm trying to take the situation that I've got and going, um, I think now I'm going to look for, one of those, what do you call them? Patio benches that I can put a lot of the crud into. Um, I'm certain you all understand. And maybe I'll try and put it on wheels so that I can, mind you, it's like it would look tidy and who's going to be complaining about it, right? And if I had it on my deck, it could act as a seat as well. I don't know. Maybe I can pick one of those up secondhand. Good idea. uh, but when I really stopped, I've still got some of my cubies, the wire ones, on my deck, and I'm going to probably not take those down. And if she wants to have an issue about those, then then she needs to give me the law that says I can't have those because they're halfway down my deck. And, you can, and my patio, you can't see all the way down the deck. So I'm also thinking about maybe getting a couple of screens for privacy, just, folding ones that I can put out just for some privacy. I rather liked being private on my deck. That made me happy, funny enough. Although it closed me off, I quite liked it. So again, I think I'm going to dream a bit. You know me, I like to dream about, if I had enough money and everything, what would I like to do? And then I slowly work my way towards it. So, you're doing pretty well with the unpacking then, Jeannie, from what I gather. It's a big job. Believe me, I know. And I must admit that I am pleased that I have managed to get some of my life back. That's how it feels to me, right? I'm still not unpacked, but it's not critical. I'm now giving myself, I will do a big. My next thing is to get the studio done, unpacked, and that's in order to do that, I need everything out of that room, so I can build the next unit, and then I will just put everything back in that room. And the question is, do I want to turn it into a studio or do I want to turn it into a spare bedroom? I very rarely have guests, if at all. And I have a couch that is big enough for somebody to sleep on. And I also have a futon. So my attitude is, no, really, I don't want to encourage visitors to stay over. Um, and if they know I don't have a spare bedroom, it's like one night's good. I'm so selfish, aren't I? All right, everybody. So have a wonderful afternoon. I will see you this evening where we will talk about coping with life. And all of you, thank you for your input here. And Jeannie, thank you for continuing your story because it helps us all see that life is not easy in so many different ways. And Jody, I know that you think that your progress isn't important, but I think that I would suggest to you that it's more important than you think it is. We've traveled this journey with you, and we want to know your milestones. We want to be able to celebrate that with you. So don't think it's not important. Oh, and Jeannie says she's waiting to hear if she has bursitis. I can never say that word right. Never mind. Got the idea. All right, so have a super afternoon. I'll see some of you this evening. And in the meantime, remember to look after one another. But please, 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 please. Number one, if you get something that frightens you, expect to have an instant reaction and it will be emotional. And then process your way out of the emotion. Put the emotion aside, look at it like a lawyer would, check your facts, and then and only then decide what you want to do next. Do not take action when you're up here. I think Caesar Milan would call it in the red zone. Right? I have learned, don't react up here. Wait until you're down here. And the funny thing is, by the time you're down here, is it worth reacting to anyway? In Jeannie's case, with electricity shorting out, yes, definitely worth reacting to and getting some help legally if necessary. All right, everybody, we'll see you this evening. Bye bye for now. Thanks, Jody.